I love the way he went out because it frustrates Oz.
So what's going to happen in the finale now? We have to talk about that. BD here, welcome back to the channel, and in this video we are talking about episode 7 of The Penguin. I can't believe we're already at episode 7. We're going to have exclusive insights from cast member Clancy Brown. We're going to have insights from showrunner Lauren LeFranc. And I'm going to rate this episode out of 10 after yapping about it. So go ahead and leave your 10 scores in the comments section now. And please continue to subscribe to the channel because we flew past 30,000 subscribers already. There's live episodes of Phase Hero coming to the channel, and one of them will be centered around the Penguin. Let's get started. First of all, this was the backstory episode. Huge moments both in the past and the present, and we learned all about Oz and what makes him tick and what really makes him a villain. Some of my key takeaways here are that Oz's mom was a little bit friendlier to his brothers. The moment where she said, "You're home when the streetlights come on," is something I think all of us can relate to. The Dare logo on the building was great. That took me back to elementary school. And kids can be absolutely terrifying because they can lie about leaving their two brothers behind to drown and just sit on the couch and watch a movie like nothing's wrong. But seriously, they made Oz, this kid who just killed his two brothers, sympathetic because you're looking at this kid. I don't know about you guys, but I'm watching Oz and I'm like, oh, this kid just wants to fit in. He wants attention. He's not getting it. But then he murders his brothers. It's brutal the way they make you root for him and want to see him find attention and joy and happiness. But then you're like, oh my God, this kid just killed his brothers. What? Question for you all. Do you think he meant to kill his brothers? I kind of think later in the episode when we see that line of him talking to Vic saying, "Fuck your guilt, get me an army," I think that bit about the guilt is him encouraging Vic to embrace the coldness that Oz himself has embraced, because I don't know if he meant to kill his brothers, but he did, and he had to live with it, and the sooner he got over it, the more he was able to live a life he wanted to live, with all the attention from his mom, with trying to just live life his way and not live in his brother's shadows. Terrible, absolutely. But understanding this character, what makes him tick, is incredible for a viewing experience. Now let's talk about Sofia real quick. Sofia often has knives in her hands, huh? And it is terrifying because we have this notion about Sofia as Hangman and all the kind of crazy lineage she comes from. But I noticed that she always has a knife in her hand. She's often in a kitchen. She's chopping stuff up. And she's never doing anything menacing with that knife. It's just, you know, her power. And I find it to be really interesting, and I think this is a way of the showrunner and the writers and the directors telling us that Sofia has so much control over herself, that she has this power. She's powerful. She has the weapon. She doesn't even need to use it to be powerful. And Sofia Gigante slander will not be happening on this channel. She's a freaking legend, and I'm interested to see her more beyond the Penguin. Big props to Mr. Krabs for acting his ass off in this episode. Did a really, really good job. That scene with Sal and the Penguin was great. Clancy Brown did a tremendous job as Sal Maroni, and the intensity between them when he's talking about his family, when he's talking about, you know, wanting to kill Oz. I think the performances on the show just continue to be just basically unmatched on television. And on that note, shout out to Dee Dee O'Connell. Her work as Frances in this episode specifically was magnificent. The moments where she's switching sort of her presence, where her mind is telling her, you know, you're in the past, you're wondering where your sons are, and then she slaps back to reality, and Sofia is sympathizing with her because she sees the mental struggles she's going through, only for that to blow up in her face, literally, and she gets slapped for it. I think that Dee Dee O'Connell's work there was absolutely incredible. And with all of that gushing in mind, I asked Lauren LeFranc what she thinks of that sort of gushing and how so many of us are calling for Emmy Awards for the Penguin already. And this is what she had to say.
I mean, it's really thrilling and exciting. It's been, for me, I've been working on this for years because it started with me just writing the first episode by myself before I had a writer's room and before I had more actors that we could cast in production and post. And I've seen it all the way through, like every little detail. So it's really heartwarming, honestly. Even though our show's really dark and messed up, it feels really nice.
I do think the switch-ups with Frances, where we see her in the past and she's this sweet, loving mother doing her best to raise 3 boys and then ultimately raise Oz, and I do feel like Oz was kind of like the kid who got left out of stuff, and then juxtaposing that with the vicious version of Frances we have in the present. I think that showing what losing her 2 boys has done to her, how cold it's made her, how vicious it's made her, was incredible. And I also think that it was insane that she put that burden on Oz at the end of the episode of making him feel responsible for her for the rest of her life. That's bad parenting, in my opinion. Oz was cooked the moment his mom put that responsibility of taking care of her onto him. Cooked more than Sal's wife and son. This kid had no chance. But speaking of them, Sal joined him in the Great Gotham Beyond. I thought the death scene for Sal Maroni was great. For main characters like that, you expect like a big explosive, like a fight, a gunshot, a knife, something. And he had a heart attack. It's brilliant. And Oz was so pissed about it, such a narcissist, that he took Sal's final moments to not only try to get him to fight back, even though Oz was losing the fight. He's so cocky and freaking ridiculous that he tried to get Sal to keep fighting him. He got on top of Sal and talked shit to his corpse. That was insane. And popped him like 7 times. It was insane. It was brilliant writing. And Clancy Brown, Mr. Krabs himself, spoke about Sal's death. So here's what he had to say about that.
I love the way he went out because it frustrates Oz. And yeah, I mean that's basically it. And he goes out in a rage, which is how he lived his life after episode 5 or after episode 6. He lives his life in anger and fury. He goes out in anger and fury.
I think the most powerful moment in this episode was Sofia and Gia talking to each other. That was the moment where I went, wait a second, maybe Sofia Gigante slander is going to be okay, because she was really basically just becoming her father 2.0. And then she realized that, and she said, I'm not doing it the same way. So that scene was extremely uncomfortable, which means it was very well written, and it led to a pivotal moment for Sofia where she was like, you know what? I don't want to be like my dad. The whole reason I took the Gigante name is so that I'm not like my dad, and I'm very interested to see where that goes. Predictions on that in a second. But first, she sent a bomb to Oz's lair. When that truck pulled up, I was like, they're not in that truck. I knew it. They were not in that truck. But when Oz went around the back of it, I thought at that point, it's going to be his mom's corpse. At first I thought bomb, then I thought his mom's body. The reveal, though, by the way, of Sofia getting out of the car and the camera work on that transition, oh, come on. They don't miss on the Penguin. They don't miss. I am absolutely, though, wondering where the hell Batman is when a part of Gotham just collapsed into itself. I know, Batman was shot, but Batman was saving people after the Gotham flood. Time has passed, enough time for Oz's shroom things to grow back. I know it doesn't take that long, but I do feel like that Batman would probably be involved in saving people, which might be something that would happen after this episode, and Oz won't be there, so we won't see it. But the imagery of that, to me, was reminiscent of imagery that came out of New York City following 9/11. It was tragic. It was terrifying. There's people going through hell. And I just think that this show, it doesn't shy away from grittiness and difficult imagery. But also, I mean, where's Batman in that? I feel like Batman has to show up, right? So what is going to happen in the finale? Let's get into some predictions. With Sal and the leaders of the Maroni family gone, I think there's a chance somebody rises up to become the new Maroni crime family leader, unless they all just fall into place and follow Sofia. I think that is something that's obviously going to have to be addressed in one way or another. I do think Oz and Sofia are both surviving this show. I am really curious if Selena Kyle is going to be a part of it, if Catwoman, which I talked about in last week's video, becomes a factor in this at all, because she has the same father as Sofia. They're technically half-sisters, and both of their mothers were killed by Carmine, by their father. So I'm curious if Catwoman has a role in this at all. I want to shout out the Shadow Realm 5110 for a comment on last week's video predicting Oz would kill his mom, since she asked for it to show Sofia that he's legit insane. I did think that was possible with this episode. I kind of wanted to see the immediate fallout of Sofia showing up there. I'm okay with seeing, the aftermath of it. But I still think that's something that could happen in the finale. I have been on the train that Oz's mom is not making it out of this series because we're going to get a fully unhinged Penguin when the Batman 2 comes around, and I think that that's still true. I think that Sofia and Oz are going to be set up to be major players going into the Batman 2. I think Sofia is going to be a little bit more of like a morally gray ally to Batman and Catwoman in the Batman Part 2, and I think Oz is going to be a full-on villain. I don't think we've seen the last of that underground lair. I think he's going to rebuild in some way or another, and this all has set him up to be an unhinged, absolutely mad, powerful kingpin in the Batman Part 2 and going forward in Gotham. I'm real curious to see if parts of this show end up spilling into the Batman, like specifically what's going on in Arkham. The Joker's in there. Oz knows about that. Sofia knows about that. Like, what is that going to do for the Batman Part 2? That's going to be really interesting. but I do think there's going to be some casualties. I think Oz's mom is cooked. I think Vic is in trouble. I did think he was probably going to die in this episode. I was wrong about that. But I think there's no way both of them survive this show. I've said it in every video, and I'm going to say it again. And one last quick shout out to Siddharth for his comment about the winter we saw in last week's episode being the same winter we will see in the Batman Part 2. We know the Batman Part 2 is taking place in the winter, so I think that's just a very good, educated guess. And yes, I think that means the Penguin will lead straight into the beginning of the Batman Part 2, which is very exciting. So now let's rate this episode out of 10. I loved it. I thought it was great. I want to hear what you guys thought in the comment section. I'm giving this one a 9.2 out of 10. This is a perfect penultimate episode just about. I don't know how you make it better. I'm still reserving a 10 because I feel like the finale might just be that. I think the cinematography, like that transition, the music from Mick Giacchino, some of the things I talked about, and specifically the writing and the performances in this episode and in this show are just second to none. It's phenomenal stuff. So with all that, I'm going with a 9.2 out of 10. I'm very curious what you all think of the Penguin episode 7. Leave your thoughts in the comments section. I'll be excited to hear from you all. Please continue to subscribe to the channel because I'll have a very exciting Penguin finale recap video with some insights from the cast on this channel. We're going to do a live Phase Hero episode, talk about it, so you can join that. I'm going to try to get some interviews for the Penguin right here on the channel so we can get some insights to you and just more videos like this one. So thank you so much in advance for joining this ride with me. I'm BD. I'll see you in the next video.